gas coming? I guess not.
What you see is what you get.
All right,
It's a good group. Good work.
it does work. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided. If any member has reason to believe that this meeting is being held in violation of this act, they should state so at this time. Hearing none, let's have the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dave, can you have roll call, please?
Sure. Hey, we got Mike,
Here.
Councilman Bodnar,
Here.
Christopher, Gretchen,
Here.
Kim, Randall,
Here,
Barbara,
Here.
Justine, Sarah, Charlotte,
Here.
and myself.
Okay. We have minutes of August 26th. Any additions or corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. I have to abstain, I was not here. Okay. Old business, we have planning board report. I wasn't at the last meeting, we have a meeting this evening. Last month, I believe we approved the shoe store. I'm having a mental block. Casals has been sold, and there's a new store going in there, and they were approved. Eventually, the first application, they were denied, and they came back, and that issue was what was going on up on the third floor as far as employee housing. And so it was approved, but now I think the ordinance is coming back we have to review that ordinance for downtown workforce housing. And I'm not sure if that's on the agenda tonight, but I will let you know.
I did review an application for sea salt.
That might be this evening. That might be this evening.
Yes, and my comment was, what they're proposing is a awning over the outdoor dining area, which they have umbrellas and all that, and it's a concrete pad anyway. But my comment just was that it's going to be directing more of the rainwater onto the garden out front. So, I approved it with comments that they just have to make sure that the landscape area can handle that extra water that's going to be there.
Okay.
So,
Craig is good about reading all your notes into the
Okay.
application, so it'll be read. Okay, Steve, council report?
Sure, okay. Well, a couple pieces of information. At the last city council meeting, city council awarded the bid for the police station. So ready to move forward with that. The low bid on the project was a little more than, it was $8,626,000 for the bid for the police station. That was the low bid. Most of the bids came in close to around that number. The contractor that has, with the prevailing bid is Ogren Construction out of Vineland. Apparently they have experience doing this type of work before, so we're going to be city's ready to move forward with them and should be breaking ground fairly shortly on that particular project. Another resolution that was before City Council, and it was approved this past week, was for engineering services for a grant application regarding clean water application that would replace and address water lines, sewer lines, and roadway reconstruction improvements. By way of this, the projects that are being reviewed are on Howard Street between Kearney Avenue to Sewell Avenue, on Virginia Avenue, Texas Avenue between Harbor Lane to the end, and a project on Reading Avenue between Idaho Avenue to Ohio Avenue. The financial structure of these programs under the Clean Water Act are, although the city would put forth the money for the project, it's a loan forgiveness program. So ultimately, the city puts out the money, and then through the grant application, the city gets reimbursed for that work that is done. It's done under, the idea of providing clean water for our residents, but I mean, obviously, as a byproduct, you tear up all the roads, of course, and as part of the grant process, they actually we end up with new roadways, new curbing, new street crossings. It's the same program that presently going on, that has been going on throughout the city. I guess one prime example of it right now would be if you went down Illinois Avenue. You would see truly a work in progress, as that's being undertaken right now. So, stay tuned for more information on that. Right now we're working through that process, but the end game would be to have continued work done that would upgrade the city infrastructure, also has at least a financial framework that provides for the city being reimbursed for the costs that are expended for it. The last item I want to mention is regarding the desal plant and the present desal plant. The City Council passed a resolution to address an issue to replace the membranes in the desalination plant. So the group at the water plant is doing and continues to do an excellent job to extend the life of the desal plant, but the infrastructure there is getting close to at the end of its useful life. Among the items, those membranes, they've been trying to extend the life of the membranes, and they have done an excellent job doing that up to a certain point in time. But now we're getting clogs in the membranes that are causing water spikes and causing breakages, and unfortunately, those membranes need to be replaced, at this point in time. So we can't extend the life any further, and while we wait for a new desal plant to be constructed. So this could cost as much as $350,000. I think it's anticipated that it will be less. I know the city's getting quotes for those replacement parts. I think they expect them actually to come in substantially less. I believe the city manager at the last meeting indicated that one of the quotes was for $270,000. But I mention that, for this reason, that, we've talked about the desal plant, the city's talked about the desal plant. And the city is moving forward with, the process that is undertaken in developing plans, getting approvals, everything that needs to be done before and financing, of course, addressing and continuing to research the best way to be able to finance a desal plant. But, this all comes down to the same issue. The city needs clean water. We need clean water for the city. We need clean water for the island, working towards that. But in the meantime, there's these other issues that come up, and I mentioned it to just highlight where we are with the present desal plant. Is that although the city is moving forward with with a way to address water need and consumption in the future. Right now, the city is doing its best to manage the plant that we have to continue to extend the life and maintain quality water for all the users. The summertime is obviously a very stressful time, but it's stressful throughout the year. So I just wanted to mention that as far as something that had to be addressed at the city council meeting this past week. Additionally, I see our city manager. So I had asked, I'd asked Paul to meet with us and just have a general conversation about Harborview Park. Harborview Park is a project that the city is ready to move forward with. The city has received a substantial grant from the county for that park. Appreciative of the county recognizing Cape May for this project. We believe that it's a very worthy project, but there has been a discussion regarding, ongoing discussions regarding the landscape plan for Harborview Park. Candidly, there's some residents who live nearby who are not satisfied with the landscape plan. The residents and people from the community have come to city council meetings to express their concerns regarding the landscape plan that was approved. There was at least one meeting with city officials meeting with folks who were concerned from Harborview Park to try to address their concerns, hear their concerns, and in turn, my understanding is that the landscape plan has been modified based off of the discussions that were had and based off the concerns that were expressed by some of the local residents. That being said, because it's been kind of unfolding in real time, the latest landscape plan is not up on the city website. And I had a conversation with the city manager asking if he could come and just address us briefly today to talk about that updated plan so everybody has an opportunity to hear about that. And as on cue, here is our city manager.
Paul, take this. I'll give it.
Yeah.
All right.
So, Paul, I was just giving, and you may have heard me, I was just giving a brief overview that there were, from the final landscape plan for Harborview Park, there were some local residents who'd expressed some concerns.
Yep.
City officials met with the residents to hear what those concerns are, and there have been some modifications that have been made. And you could say significant modifications.
Significant,
based off of the feedback that was provided. That being said, obviously, and it's because it's been unfolding in real time, there hasn't been the opportunity to put the latest landscape plan up on the city website. That's my understanding. Please correct me if I'm wrong about any of that.
Can we jump in?
So, yeah, why don't I turn it over to you and bring everybody up to speed.
So, yeah, we did have a meeting out there with the residents. Obviously, the residents were concerned about their view was the majority of it. So I think the original plan had maybe close to 90 classified trees on the property. So we went back and looked at it. They essentially wanted us to go down to almost 0 trees, which obviously we're not going to build a park in Cape May City with 0 trees, and we kind of said that to them. But we kind of went back to looking at the shade tree regulations and saying, okay, if we're going to remove trees, let's look at if you were as a homeowner were going to come in, what would we do for you as a homeowner? Well, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. You take down a tree, you got to plant 2 more trees. So we went back and applied that ratio. There's about 26 trees on the property that we inventoried. So we're about in the mid-50s trees going back. So that's kind of where we've landed now. They had some questions about species. So, the species that we have on there are slower growing species, also the smaller versions of whatever we could find. I think that the tallest tree that we have on there is we have a series of, I think it's 6 or 7 birch trees along the curvilinear bench behind that to kind of frame and create that area. I think those are I'll say the largest design trees that'll be within the park as it moves forward. And yes, I probably later this week, early part of next week, as we get the final sets that are going out to bid, then I'll put the final plan on the website for everyone to see. I literally was just downstairs pulling this off the plotter to show you guys, and I can leave that here for you after the meeting if anybody wants to take a look at it. But this is the plan that we're looking at going out to bid with at this point.
And Paul, I just want to add, I mean, I appreciate that. And I mention that just because the fact that it's not on the website, this is truly unfolding in real time.
Yep.
So that's the reason why it's not there. And I know it's going to be up there as soon as it practically can be put up there. So appreciate everything that's been done. And I also appreciate the fact that you brought it here so we can have it, everybody can take a look at
In
it.
this version, you can kind of see, you'll see on some of them, the tree types are highlighted. So that's some of the trees that were just revised in the latest version of the plant material type was revised on those. So you can kind of see that what was latest revised in the plan.
So I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Just, do you recall offhand what the original proposal was, number of trees?
It was just up over 90, I believe.
Just over 90, and
We made one revision, bringing it down to like, I think in the low 70s, and then that's when the residents were like still coming unglued, so that we kind of relooked at it to be kind of in compliance with the shade tree.
And what's our number at this point?
I think we're in the mid-50s, low to
Mid-50s.
mid-50s,
Okay.
as far as trees. Some of the actual trees, you could qualify, whether they're a shrub or a tree. There's a couple that, depending on which horticultural book you look at, some could classify them as a tree, some could classify them as a shrub, but we classified them as trees, figuring that the property owners in the area would use the more conservative designation. But overall, it's still going to be I think it's a good design. It's going to be a vast improvement to what's out there today. I think everybody agrees that that park needs a refresh, and the other comment that we've gotten a lot about is, yes, the city's going to maintain this park. I think that Harborview Park is it doesn't look as great because I think we've just kind of let it fall by the wayside over the years, and it just hasn't gotten the attention. I think now that we're going to do this, we're spending close to $2 million with county grant money. The city's going to make the commitment to maintain this park the way the rest of our parks in the city.
Did the city put any money in, or was just this?
Yeah, it's a 10% match.
Okay.
So, it's about, and I rounded, I think it was like a 1.9 million grant, so it's in that $2 million budget range, and the city's paying about 10%.
Timeline on this? Is there a timeline?
So we're going to put it out to bid now. Obviously, there are some items in there that have a longer lead time, especially the gazebo. So my intent would be to not let the contractor break ground until I know when that gazebo is going to be delivered. That's kind of what, if you saw how we started with Lafayette Street Park, this most recent version, it kind of sat in a state of construction for a good part of the summer while we were waiting for those things to be delivered. I don't want that to happen again. Let's work backward from when we know that delivery is going to come, and work backward, not have a hiatus in the middle where it's becoming, because people still want to use that area. So let's let them use it, and we'll close it down to when they can get it built. But I would anticipate, obviously, even if we started today, you're not going to be able to plant a lot of this material in the wintertime. So it's going to be, a spring, probably early spring planting for a lot of these plant materials, to have an opening, late May, early June would be the hope.
Is the gazebo going to be, is it a standard type gazebo? Or is it something really nice?
I don't know if I have, I don't have that detail. That detail is on the,
That is on the city website,
so
right?
the
I
full
just
set of
think
plans.
that, yeah, and actually with I believe a great amount of detail is
Yes.
included for the Harborview Park on the plans that are.
I think it's close to it's close to maybe what the Rotary Park is, I think.
Yeah, it
but
looks like that.
I think
Remember,
that's,
like wrought iron and,
yeah,
Okay, nice. That'd be nice.
definitely better than the ones that are in current condition out at the park today.
You mentioned a little bit about you're going to maintain this thing. I don't, it's been talked in the past where you might actually have a budget line item for a company to do this kind of stuff, that they're, instead of, I mean, I trust our public works people, but, you know, sometimes having somebody really that understands how to maintain this stuff might be worth its while to do that. I don't know.
We can look at
It's a
that,
thought.
but but a lot of that is you get what you pay for. I mean, I think our guys
Okay, I'm just-
can handle it, because I think when you go and look at whether it's Rotary Park, Soldiers and Sailors, Kiwanis, those are, you know, they're looking pretty good right now, so, and the islands around, you know, coming in off the small bridge around Lafayette and Washington, so I think, you know, we'll get it going, and then, yes, if we need to evaluate that, we'll evaluate that as we move forward.
Anybody else have any more questions?
well, I've been thinking about that too, just like we're expanding our parks and improving them and the nature trail and everything. I just wondered if you were adding staff to the public works to
At this
maintain-
point, we're not adding staff. I mean, that's kind of part why we had to hold the line with the recycling program, you know, because that was bulging at the seams, and like, we didn't have the staff for that because we needed to maintain some of these things. So those are the kinds of things we'll be looking at and everything like that.
I mean, look, I think we're on the same page here. I mean, I would like to see you bring it up to council at least to see what their thoughts are, that you may be a lot of money you think a lot of money to maintain these parks, but
And we'll look at that,
in the
because,
grand scheme of things, it might be worth the line item to, instead of having a good certified company do all of it,
sure.
you know, and that, you know,
And that's what, when we look,
and I would think it'd be worth looking into at least.
we'll look at that as part of our budget process, for sure.
Paul, I just have one small question. Is this a property that can be rented for the city's use to offset?
Yeah,
some of the-
so just all of our parks, you know, it has the ability, if a resident wants to reserve an area for that, we have a facilities of use process that, you know, if they want to hold an event there, that they can, yes.
Okay.
Which they actually can now if they wanted.
Sure,
to at
I
that
mean,
location.
we actually had to close, a lot of people like try to have wedding ceremonies down there, so we've kind of had to block it out. And, you know, I get a couple calls every couple months saying, what's the time frame? When can we open it up back for people to schedule something there? So, yeah, we schedule there already for that, and that'll continue.
Paul, before you leave, I know,
If you have any other questions besides Harborview Park.
yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
do.
that's
One
fine.
of them is the capstone thing on Columbia, that Columbia. did.
Yes, yes,
I mean, Steve was on that Zoom call, Justine was on it, I was on it, and you were on it. and
yes.
There's four other people that were on the Zoom call.
I think there's one or two from HPC.
You want to just kind of overview what happened on that thing?
Sure. So this is it's something that I had kind of put out to them when we originally talked with them last year, and it's a conundrum that I think that we need to look at, is because we're a historical city, but not just our entire, you know, when we deal with flood development and resiliency, it's easy to look at an individual property and try to protect it from flood and what the future may lie. But I think we have to look holistically as our city is a national historic landmark, so it's in mass. And it's not just all the properties that make it up, it's our trees and all the other pieces, you know, the sidewalks and you know, so it's a bigger puzzle piece than that. And then, so how do we look at resiliency? You know, so obviously we have a pretty resilient beach replenishment program. We're getting a grant with FEMA to extend our seawall to provide protection. So from the Atlantic Ocean, I think we're pretty resilient as far as, but our flooding comes from the back bays. It comes up Cape Island Creek in the back, and that's where everything comes. So that's really what we have to protect from. So how do we look at preserving our history and our key contributing structures and our contributing structures and the ebb and flow of our national historic landmark city? And then this isn't 4 years from now. This is really to plan for, that longer horizon. How should we be planning for 10, 15, 20 years from now to address what we see coming? Because I don't care who you are, if you're saying that the floodwaters aren't getting higher, then you haven't been around here long enough. Because, even in the last 20 years, we're getting more frequent floods and they're hitting more often. Everybody knows, Yacht Avenue, Elmira Street, Elmira Bank, and that whole intersection area. That's where we're seeing it on a routine basis. But as that becomes more normal and then you add flooding for it, then it starts to come into the other neighborhoods. And then because the floodwaters can't evacuate, that flooding just expands into other neighborhoods that we don't currently see on a frequent basis. Or not even when a storm comes, we're seeing flooding on, Yacht Avenue and Elmira and Bank. It could be a sunny day out and but it's a full moon and the tides are running high. You get a little bit of wind and the streets are flooded. So how do we protect our city, and what do we do in the long term to help plan for the cities?
You made a comment. I couldn't fathom what you had said on that meeting, but you said that there was a study that they made that they're raising all the structures in the city and whatnot to try to justify it in the flooding, but they thought that was cheaper than actually doing the
Yes.
doing the shoreline.
So the Army Corps did it's called the Back Bay Study, and they studied the entire coastline from up above Sandy Hook all the way down the coast and then around to the Delaware Bay. And they looked at, and they broke it up into sections, and essentially they went from inlet to inlet, as you went down. So, like from Sandy Hook down through Barnegat, from the Great Egg Harbor Inlet, they kind of went inlet to inlet and examined them. And when you get to the southern end of the county, it's not cost effective for them to put the big floodgates at the inlets, mainly because they're so, especially on the southern side, Corson's Inlet is not navigable, so you can't protect there. And since they can't protect Corson's Inlet, when you look at Townsend's Inlet is just as bad because that's not really a truly navigable inlet. And then we look from Townsend's down to, Cape May, because of those couple uncontrolled inlets, it's not cost effective to put tide structures on all of those, because you'd have to do Corson's, Townsend's, Hereford, and then you got to do the canal. There's not enough real estate on the inside to justify the cost. Army Corps looks at it's a cost benefit analysis, and it's the benefit of that it's got to outweigh that. But when they looked at all the number of structures that are in harm's way, it was actually cheaper just to go and pay to raise them all, as opposed to build the tidal structures out there. Now, the problem though is, okay, you go up to Wildwood, Avalon, Sea Isle, Ocean City even, or even on the mainland areas of Upper Township, Middle Township, and Lower Township, raising those homes to get them out of the floodwaters. Okay, that's, they all have their architectural styles within the community, so I don't mean to say that they're not, but they're not Cape May. None of them are a National Historic Landmark. So how do we do that? By respecting that. If, right now, currently, to meet our flood elevation, we have a requirement to have, the city ordinance is to have 2 feet of flood freeboard. So you got to be 2 feet above what the flood hazard zone is. So so that's today. So when we're thinking about resiliency, 25 years, and I'm sure you've heard me discussing the discussions about the New Jersey Pact and the REAL rules that the DEP is putting forth, and they're talking, they're trying to project out to 2100, and they're talking about, raising structures 4 feet plus an additional foot of freeboard, so 5 feet. I don't think we need to look ahead 2100 because we don't really, if you look back in the last 30, even 50 years, science and technology and everything has changed so much that if we had thought about 50 years ago trying to plan for today, we would have been wrong more times than you're not. Who would have ever thought that your cell phone would have been more powerful than, the computer that you could have had sitting on your desktop, let alone your desktop, but, that would fill this room. Nobody could have thought about that, right? So to conceptualize what the environment's going to be like in 2100, and to tell people to build today, to plan for that is not realistic. But I think we need to do some planning because even on these regular days, we're seeing it. So that's really, when you look at resiliency, it's, okay, we know the water is going to be a little bit higher, but then when that big storm comes, that's on top of that. So that's what we have to try to prepare and plan for. But if you started saying, Congress Hall, that sits up on a nice bluff, and that may be okay, but you get some of the other, just down the block, okay, the Inn at Cape May. Is that high enough to do that? What about the rest of it? What about all the neighborhoods that are in that area? The Stockton cottages. How do I raise them? But it's not just the buildings. Like I said, it's easy to raise the buildings. You got to do some treatments, but what happens then to the fabric? And then do we have the National Historic Landmark? Do we still have what we've built? So that really becomes the question, and I don't know the answer, and I think this is just to start that questioning and to come up. Is there a good path? What should we be looking at? What should we be talking to, City Council, the Planning Board, and how do we want to plan the HPC for that future? Hopefully, I probably utterly confused everybody, but it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to conceptualize because it's a lot of concepts and it's tough.
Paul, Mr. Bodnar was wonderful about filling us in terms of, a new a police station, and certainly the fact that we need something more at the desal plant.
Yep.
And I am thinking also about our new structure on the beach for our lifeguards.
Yes.
Are any of those buildings, and I might include the Nature Center in this too, are they going to have solar on their buildings?
So the desal plant,
Yes?
that's planned to be done. The lifeguard station already has solar on top.
Great.
The police station, not planned currently, but has been designed to allow it to be. That's part of the design with the mansard roof around it. That was part of how to get that extra parapet wall up there so that if we put solar on the roof, you wouldn't see it from the ground. We're designing some of the electrical panels internally so that We have the conduits so that we can run down internally inside the building to the electric control room, and we have panel space for the solar controllers. So yeah, we've designed that building to be solar-ready
Right.
in the future.
And one of the buildings at the Nature Center is certainly city property. And I was wondering about solar there as well.
I mean, there is solar on the one building, and it's coming up to 20 years. So I'm not sure about, the functionality of that system. There's always a possibility that the other classroom building could have it,
Right.
too.
So, I mean, if you're looking at, I don't know, the grants certainly are individualized, but if that could be a part of the thinking, that would be
Okay.
really acceptable. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
I have I guess it would be new business. I've been spending a lot of time on the nature trail. I walk down from my house in the morning, do a couple of loops, so I'm looking into the woods a lot. And unfortunately, there's a major English ivy problem, porcelain berry vine. There's just invasive species. So just putting it on your radar to look for grant possibilities of how we could restore that habitat a little bit better than it is. And another thing that I noticed, I don't know if school children did this or what, on the edge of the path, the concrete path, there's flowers that are not native. Somebody must have thrown some seeds in there. There's alyssum and cosmos, and it's pretty, but they're not the native plants. And there's just definitely some more that we could do there on the area that's, the disturbed ground. Maybe seed with native wildflowers.
I know David's
Yeah,
he's working on some plans
We
and
talked about
ideas.
that, but, and then the other thing is, right before you enter the marsh trail, at the beginning and the end of the trail, there's grasses that were planted there. They're not native species. And they're pretty, but we should almost take a pledge that what we do in the nature trail is native plants. So potentially next spring, I would even donate some shrubs from the Nature Center's plant sale and plant them there, do a planting of the native wildlife beneficial plants. So, yeah.
Those grasses were planted there just to get some verticality to prevent people from walking out underneath the bridge
Yeah.
while this opening. So yeah, that's definitely something we can look at.
The other
in the
thing
long term.
I'll say, it might be, I know on the sign, if you read the small print, it says no dogs and no bikes, but there's definitely dogs and bikes. And so I don't know, because you see the remnants that they're not picking up after their dogs.
Yeah, but a lot of that is not, there are some
Not dogs.
not dogs out there.
Oh, well, I know.
So
I
it's,
know
so
how,
it's not, it's
I know
not-
how to identify.
Yeah, so it's
scat.
not as much dog as it's, I think it's
Yeah,
scat
yeah.
more than.
I know, but there are some, because my husband,
But that goes for everywhere
I know,
within the city.
I
So
know.
we would have to place the city can't afford to have a patrolman stationed there to prevent, so that's always going to be the case. We are looking at putting some stenciling on the asphalt just to
Okay.
reinforce the no bikes.
Okay.
Because that's a safety
Yeah.
concern. But yes, signs are there, and obviously only the people that want to obey the rules listen to signs.
Yeah.
The people that don't want to obey the rules,
I ride my bike and I walk my dogs, but I haven't done it on the,
and they're going to do it regardless of
Well-
how many signs or
no, the
what I do up
stenciling's a
there.
good idea. I just thought maybe one bigger sign, like off, there's a post off to the left.
We have the no dogs. There's two red,
Yeah,
there's two
no
red
bikes.
dogs.
Yeah,
So for the bikes, instead of adding a sign, we're adding a stenciling on the pavement.
Yeah,
and the other thing is, by the dog park, there's I took a picture of it this morning, there's a cluster of vegetation that they left there, and I think there's a Bradford pear, that they saved, and then I think it's a mulberry, and there's some shrubs, but it's just covered with ivy. So if they're going to leave that, which would be nice because it's going to provide some extra shade, that we should try to tackle and get the ivy out and just clean it up to make this nice cluster there.
Well, maybe we can add to our dune days, and then, maybe we can, if the Environmental Commission wants to host a invasive species
Yeah,
strike force cleanup day kind of a thing, and maybe that's something that we can add to our environmental.
If I can make a suggestion, because Gretchen and others have thrown out a variety of different ideas, just to kind of keep it organized and to keep it on the radar, if it could be perhaps summarized in an email and send that to Paul, just so you have that for a frame of reference when leaving here, as far as the specific issues that have been discussed. So we have an opportunity to kind of look at that and be able to follow up on that. So would you volunteer to
yeah,
kind of
I can do that.
shepherd
That would be nice.
something
That would
like
be nice.
that? Because I think that way, then, we make sure it stays at the forefront
Yeah,
of the
I
conversation.
mean, maybe we could plan an Earth Day event where we get out there and do an invasive species
I think
poll.
that would probably be make it a community event
Yeah.
and just, because I know we do a lot of, cleanup days up on the dunes, and, I know we have dune planting day coming up real soon, but, that's something that we could probably schedule that at some point to kind of break it up during the year, and, and over a couple of years, we can probably get a tackle on that.
Gretchen,
It's
is there a better time of the year to do that?
I mean,
I mean,
and they're,
it's clear that there's, in the summertime, it's really overgrown. You can't really see a lot of stuff.
and you mentioned the invasive species strike team or whatever. There is a group in New Jersey that they
Right.
go out, and they are professionals in their field. New Jersey Audubon's stewardship department does have staff that they could come out and offer some advice, and
Or at least maybe on our first one, help us organize the first one, to kind
Yeah.
of train the trainer kind of an event,
Yeah.
so that we know exactly what to do.
I mean, one of the things you go in, some of the ivy, I mean, the vine stalks are so big that there's a way that you go in and you cut without harming the tree. You leave it there so that it dies, and then you come back months later to pull it down because it becomes brittle at that point. Part of the one thing, like, part of the woods is okay. Closer you get to the marsh, the ivy hasn't gotten that far
far
yet. My worry is that it will get that far, so you have to try to stop the spread. And, there's some beautiful trees in there that we could unearth. So,
Anybody else have anything for Paul?
Thank you.
Well, not related to, at the end of the promenade, across from where they're digging it up there right now.
You're down at the
Yeah.
Madison Avenue end?
Yeah, what
Yes.
are they gonna be doing?
It's a handicap ramp.
Will there
They're
be-
putting in a formal handicap ramp at that location.
All right. I ride my bike.
Because it's not, I mean, what's there now is, that ramp there is a vehicular ramp, not a
Right.
pedestrian ADA ramp. So they're putting in a pedestrian ADA ramp there. And so, yeah, your bike ramp will get back, open up fairly,
It's easy.
maybe within the next week or two, they'll have it formed up, and then they'll be able to
Okay,
get you open back up to get bikes on the other side of that.
okay.
So, Paul, the landscape plan, can we hold on?
I'll
hold
leave that
to
here,
the
so
end
if
of the
anybody
meeting?
wants to look at it after the meeting, and then
I'll
just
bring-
leave it here, and then I'll get it, and
Perfect. That's,
grab it later.
I'll make sure it gets back to you. I was going to ask,
you
thank you
just leave
very
it
much.
up in, if
for,
you want to take it up to council chambers and leave it up in council chambers,
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay, and we'll do that. Okay.
Anybody else have anything, questions?
Thanks, Paul.
No problem.
Thank
Thank you,
you, Paul.
guys,
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
it.
Last thing for old business is Dune Day. Dave, you want to say anything about it?
Yep. So ordered About 2,000 bare stem roots and 21-gallon goldenrods for Dune Day, which is going to be on October 4th from 10 to noon. The quantities I order is a lot smaller than last year. So, and then we chose the meeting place to be at Queen Street on the promenade right there. So I'm thinking of doing the Jefferson section of the dunes there, which is still a nice sized part of the dunes, accessible enough.
We're not going to be doing any of the entranceways or anything like that. We're just going to be concentrating right on Jefferson Street.
Yeah, within that duned area, and I can show everybody a day off. But yeah, we definitely don't want to plant in any entrances at all, because that can go into the mats, and Public Works won't like that at all. But yeah, I think that dune would be enough. And then there's a smaller size, 1 gallons of the goldenrod, so hopefully this year we don't have a 2-month drought like we did last year, so. But we did, I mean, I'll even walk in the promenade this year, lots of it did hold up from last year, which is great news, so, more than I thought.
And just so everybody knows, the Dune Day this is going to be an annual event now for what we're doing here.
Yeah, so what we're thinking of is having Civic Affairs doing the marketing for us, and then with the okay and approval every year from the Environmental Commission to come out of the budget, Environmental Commission budget for the planting, the plants, things like that, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think every year. And I've had PD go over last year, the dunes with a drone. So we have a picture of the before. And I'm thinking another year or so now, it'd be kind of cool to go back over it and see an after of how much grew and how much held.
Some of it's going to stay, some of it's not, but it's all good.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it did stay from last year, even through the drought, so I would say half of it, which is pretty amazing, so.
Are we going to let the high school kids and some of the college groups know about this, or don't we need?
Yeah, we send out to the local college. It's promoted on the city's website, social media, kind of like we do with all of our events, so definitely spread the word if you can. But and then we have an event coming up Friday to help promote it, so. But it's a lot more manageable this year, a lot more manageable than.
Okay, new business. Anybody have any new business? Okay, we have, Charlotte, you want to talk about stewardship?
Sure. I'd like just to remind everyone at the tables that we will certainly be celebrating the Monarchs this Sunday, and we will be having a table or two. There will be crafts, and there'll be some illustrative plants that attract butterflies. And I'd like to just mention, there's a really wonderful brochure that New Jersey Audubon publishes. And it's Gardening for Wildlife. And I won't bore you too much, but I'll just say that they're encouraging native plants, plant hosts, that they think that it's a good idea for us to leave the leaves in the autumn in the yard instead of just raking them up and putting them out. And if we know anything about the numbers of monarchs, we should always be very, very protective. We need milkweed, we need salvia, we need asters, bee balm, of course sunflowers, lavender, coneflowers, yarrow, butterfly bush in some cases is acceptable and in others not, and zinnias. And I'd like to say that Gretchen has been creating a wonderful column for us in the Star and Wave, and in it, she talks, it's called Nature Talks, and at the Cape May Bird Observatory, sister center of our nature center, there are classes every Wednesday after school, programming for kindergartners through third graders entitled Monarch Meetup, which take place from 4 to 5 p.m. exploring butterfly-related topics through nature walks, crafts, activities. But truly, the biggest butterfly bang is the Monarch Fest that we're talking about. Sunday, September 28th from 10 till 4. We had quite a nice publication of this event in Exit Zero this week, 2-pager. And it just says that educational programs, family-friendly games, activities, butterfly yoga, butterfly parade. There is a suggested donation of $5 per person. And I know that if you'd like to come and help, we certainly have room for you.
You're on a roll, Firefly Gardens. You're on a roll, Firefly Gardens, you ready?
No, that was
Okay.
last
Okay.
month. We can let that go.
David, Clean Communities, you want to say anything about that?
Yep, our next one is going to be this Thursday for Clean Communities at Perry Beach entrance, 3 to 5.
Okay. That's at Perry Street?
Yeah, Perry Street, yep.
Okay. All right, so this week, so we got some stuff coming up. If anybody volunteers and want to stick around, it'd be nice. Anybody else have anything?
I'm just curious to look what species they've selected. I ran into one of the neighbors who used to be my former neighbor, and she gave me an earful about 90 trees, and oh my goodness, and, you know, it's always been a battle down there that they didn't want their view blocked. But it is a park, and I think sometimes you can have a tree, and it's the way you prune it and maintain it, you can still have a view. So I'm just kind of curious what they've selected and,
Okay.
you know.
Gretchen, may I just add to that a little bit? Because when we fought for this property to be saved,
Yes,
there were going to be 3 condos there, sky high. And think what the neighbors would be looking at had we not fought that good battle. I think somebody ought to remind them about that. Excuse me, thank you.
No, I'm with you. All right, motion to adjourn?
Thank you.
Okay.
make a motion.
Mike's off.